welcome to my channel. I'm Charlotte Ross. Today I want to talk about my reading goals for 2019. So in 2018, I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself, so I just decided that I really wanted to concentrate on reading regularly, whatever that meant. How many books in a year would that mean? While I didn't track the beginning of the year, I started tracking maybe in the spring, and I had read a bit before and I forget what I read. So in all, I read over 30 books. I don't know exactly how many, but between 30 and 40 is what I could say, which for big bibliophiles doesn't sound like that much, but for someone who had been completely distracted and had a really fragmented attention span from being with a toddler and having a smartphone and not being able to read more than like an article at a time. I don't think I had finished, like I probably only finished 1 or 2 books per year for the couple years before that, you know what I mean? And started and didn't finish dozens of books. So I really wanted to start reading again really properly. I feel like now it's really hard to concentrate completely solely on one book at a time. There's just so much coming at you trying to grab your attention. And it kind of saddened me to realize that I wasn't reading as much as I used to and loved to. So I made that a priority in the last year, and I'm really happy with how that went. And for the coming year, I feel like I can take that even farther. So I tend to not buy my books unless they are must-haves, even though I have hundreds of books at home, but in terms of new books that I want to read, I tend to get them from the library, and I am obsessed. I love the library. We have an amazing library downtown. I go there once a week or once every 2 weeks depending, and I can take up to 25 books out at a time, which is a lot. So usually I'll go for a library run, and I'll pick up some books for myself, for my son, and sometimes a couple for my boyfriend if I think they might interest him. I like so many different genres. I'm interested in a lot of things, but I tend to stick to nonfiction. I used to read a lot of fiction when I was younger, but I just feel like there's so much nonfiction that I want to read that it ends up crowding out any kind of fiction that I might be interested in. So I tend to gravitate towards memoirs. I tend to gravitate towards psychology, philosophy, self-help books too, economics books, political science, health science, fitness, health, nutrition. I tend to read like a few books at a time. This year my goal is to read 50 books, which is it's feasible. I feel like that's a feasible goal for me. Like I've seen people who will read 100 books in a year, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I would love that, but I don't think that that's really realistic for me right now. But I do think it's realistic for me to read around 50. I tell myself it comes out to about 50 pages per day minimum. I tend to read in the evening before bed. I also feel that it's a really good way for me to fall asleep. I have a hard time falling asleep naturally sometimes, and I definitely don't think that being in front of a screen or a device or a TV is a very good way to fall asleep. But I still like to be involved in something, immersed in something. I don't want to like meditate or something before going to bed. So reading is really helpful for me. It's usually my alone time. My son is sleeping. Usually my partner is also sleeping, and I get to just devote myself completely to whatever I'm reading. Those are my reading goals this year. I want to read about 50 books or 50 pages per day. I say 50 minimum because I haven't done the math. Like I don't know if it actually comes out to 50 books per year. Obviously, there's a wide-ranging amount of pages per book, but I feel like most books that I read are between 200 and 400 pages long. What will help me stay on track is sharing my monthly reads, or my monthly reading list. So the month of January, the first book I've read 2 books so far. I've read The Only Girl in the World by Maud Julien, and I picked this up at the library not realizing that this was translated, which I would have preferred to read it in the original language in French because I read French, so I would have preferred to read it in the original language. I actually kind of felt the translation as I was reading it, but I already had the book and I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna read it and I'll make sure next time to check to see if it's translated or not. So I read The Only Girl in the World, which is a memoir, a very harrowing, intense memoir, disturbing for sure, but a very, very unique and interesting story of resilience that I find that made me think a little bit of a memoir that I read last year called A Stolen Life, by the story of J.C. Lee Dugard, who was also horribly abused. But what I found in the similarities between these stories is that these people tend to, what saves them really, even amidst like the evils of the world, of people, and being so isolated, what saves them is their connection with animals and whatever fantasy world they immerse themselves in. So J.C. Lee, she had more of a world with her daughters and that she imagined in her mind, but here Maud Julien also completely immersed herself in the stories of her fictional characters in books, and that's what really saved her and gave her hope as to what humanity was capable of and what experiences were possible for her outside of what she was living, which was really a living hell. So I found that really, even though these are very disturbing memoirs, I find them also very inspiring, because it proves that you can come from a terrible place and come out so resilient and so still full of love and hope and curiosity. So that's why I think they're worth reading. So the next book I read was Big Potential by Sean Aker. This was kind of a pop psychology book. I did not read his previous book, which was called The Happiness Advantage, I think. It's a very popular book though. I just kind of picked this up on a whim, and because I'm not buying it, I'm just renting it. I don't think too much about whether it's gonna be worth it or not. I tell myself that if I don't like it, I can just put it down, bring it back to the library. This book was okay. It was okay. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't life-changing. It had some valuable information in it. I found it slightly simplistic at times and slightly redundant, but it's still worth reading if it's something you want to read about. Big Potential is how transforming the pursuit of success raises our achievement, happiness, and well-being. And it's really about tapping into the capacity we have to reach our maximum potential by embracing teamwork and working with other people and not having to just compete against other people. I'm not explaining this properly. Just a second. I thought I'd just read to you the very beginning of the description. In a world that thrives on competition and individual achievement, we are thinking about potential all wrong. By pursuing success in isolation, pushing others away as we push ourselves too hard, we are not just limiting our potential, we are becoming more stressed and disconnected than ever. So Sean Aker talks about this virtuous cycle, how you basically don't need to be the smartest person or the most successful person on your own, that really your success depends on who's around you and being able to bounce off of each other's energies. And he uses an analogy that's quite good, where he says, you know, like when you're jumping on a trampoline, for example, there's only so high you can jump if you're alone jumping, but if you have another person with you next to you and they're also jumping, then if you catch their rebound just at the right time, you can jump higher than you would have been able to jump alone. So that's a nice little analogy. So it was interesting, but like I said, there were some parts that I found a little bit reductive, redundant, a little too simplified for the general population and for the reality of most people. You Play the Girl by Karina Chocano, and I'm really enjoying this. I highly recommend it if you are interested in feminist nonfiction critiques of, especially of cinema and media. It has been very influential and I'm getting a lot out of it, and I know that this is actually a book I might want to buy to have on my bookshelf to reread. Okay, so right now I just started How to Murder Your Life by Kat Marnell, and that is another memoir. Honestly, it's more of like an entertainment book for me right now because it's not really, it's not relatable to me. Like, this is a very rich, privileged young woman. It's a world that I have no part in, but it is going to be entertaining, I'm sure, and it offers a glimpse into someone else's life, which is what I love about memoir. I like often to balance a book that's a little bit lighter or more entertaining with something that's heavier, and you'll see I have a wide range of tastes. So the other books that I have picked out for the next 2 months are Ta-Nehisi Coates. I'm gonna have to look up how to say their name, but Between the World and Me. I have The Human Predicament, A Candid Guide to Life's Biggest Questions by David Benatar. The Art of Money, A Life-Changing Guide to Financial Happiness by Barry Tesler. Dope Sick, Dealers, Doctors, and the Drug Company That Addicted America by Beth Macy. I'm really interested and really looking forward to reading that book. I have another memoir, The New Old Me, My Late Life Reinvention, which is about a woman who kind of loses everything and has to start over her whole life when she's, how old again? I can't see right now, I don't know where it is, but basically I think in her 50s or 60s, which is obviously not something I can relate to either, but that's, like I said, why I love the memoir genre. I have Exit la Charge Mentale by Marie-Laure Moneret, and I think this is a French book, French author from France. I live in Quebec, so I like to make that distinction because it's actually culturally we are quite different, and language wise too, actually, like the vocabulary and stuff will be very different. But this is about emotional labor and la charge mentale. I don't know how you would say, I guess the mental load that that women have. Gary Vaynerchuk's Jab Jab Right Hook, How to Tell Your Story in a noisy social world. So I have to get used to looking at you, not into the viewfinder, because I think you're there, but you're not, you're over there. But anyway, I'm still getting used to talking on camera while I'm doing other things. It's new for me. It's a new challenge. So I really want to read some of his books. This will be the first book of his that I read. I follow him on social media. I really like his message. I find him inspiring, and I find him also very real. So those are the books that I have set up for the next few months, the next couple of months. I hope that you will follow along. Please let me know in the comments down below whatever you're reading, if you have any recommendations, if you've read any of the books that I'm in the midst of reading. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. I hope you'll subscribe if you're interested. I do videos on makeup, on books, fitness, lifestyle. Give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, have a great day.